Audio Library presents Animal Farm by George Orwell book summary in this podcast. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a sharp, critical look at one of the most essential political texts of the 20th century, George Orwell's Animal Farm.
Mm-hmm.
And, forget the talking animals for a moment, because this is a masterclass in political theory, and it's just disguised as a short novel.
It really is.
So our mission today, it's not just to summarize the story. We want to extract the blueprint, the knowledge nuggets that show exactly how an idealistic revolution collapses into a mirror image of the very oppression it fought to overthrow.
That's absolutely right. And for those of you who know the story, we're going way beyond the plot points. We're focusing on the systemic rot.
The rot, yeah.
Because Orwell, he didn't write this just to criticize Stalin. I mean, that was part of it. But he wrote it to expose the corrupting nature of absolute power itself.
Right. It's universal.
It is. It demonstrates how language, history, and fear are weaponized to subdue the masses. So we'll be tracking the entire trajectory, showing you the exact mechanisms from that first moment of ideological compromise right up until the final shocking fusion of pig and man.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start at the beginning with the environment that makes a revolution even possible. Let's talk about the Manor Farm under Mr. Jones. This is Chapter 1, setting the stage for rebellion.
The perfect starting point.
So the opening scene is so critical because it establishes the precondition for all of this. We're introduced to Mr. Jones, and he's not, some kind of mustache-twirling villain actively cracking a whip.
None at all.
He's a ruler defined by just monumental negligence. He's perpetually drunk. He stumbles up to bed without even bothering to shut the pop holes to secure the farm.
And that visible failure, that incompetence of the governing authority is the crucial element. You're so right. Rebellion, it's often enabled not by the peak of cruelty, but by the visible decay of the ruling class. Jones is failing in his most basic duty, feeding the animals, maintaining the farm. He's making the status quo unbearable, not just through malice, but through, sheer indolence. He just doesn't care.
But the spark isn't just about hunger, is it? It's about the power of an idea. And that idea is introduced by Old Major, the respected middle white boar.
Mm-hmm. The figurehead.
He's so highly regarded that every single animal is willing to lose an hour's sleep just to hear about his strange dream.
Which tells you everything.
It does. This immediate willingness to prioritize philosophy over rest. It just shows you the depth of the animal's yearning for something different.
And that assembly in the barn, it immediately functions as this microcosm of the whole society. It maps out the classes that will either, drive, enable, or actively resist the change that's coming.
Yeah, let's break that down. We see the backbone of physical revolution right away. Boxer and Clover, the cart horses.
Workhorses. Literally.
Right. And Boxer is just the epitome of the devoted, strong working class, the proletariat, really. He has this enormous strength. He's respected for his steadiness, but Orwell gives him that crucial caveat, a somewhat stupid appearance.
Not of first-rate intelligence.
Exactly. And that pairing, this immense physical power with a kind of intellectual passivity, that is the engine that both drives and ultimately fails the entire revolution.
It is. And Clover, she's the motherly figure. She's the compassionate one, the keeper of memory. But she's a silent, suffering witness for most of the story. She feels things are wrong, but can't quite articulate it.
Then you get the figures who enable the betrayal. And first up is Benjamin the donkey.
Oh, Benjamin.
He's the oldest, the worst-tempered, and just profoundly cynical. He represents, for me, the intellectual who sees the whole collapse coming. He sees the failure of idealism from a mile away, but he chooses absolute passivity.
He does. He's devoted to Boxer, but he's taciturn. He refuses to engage in the political project at all. I mean, that dark humor of his, saying he'd prefer to have no tail and no flies rather than fighting them, that's a perfect encapsulation of his detachment.
It is, and on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, you have Molly, the white mare.
Right.
She arrives chewing a lump of sugar. Her only concern is about her ribbons. She is the perfect representation of, bourgeois vanity.
Absolutely. Focused purely on immediate personal luxury and the aesthetic trappings of the old regime. She is the first casualty of idealism because she just can't grasp that the ribbons are a symbol of the very slavery they're fighting against.
She can't see past her own comfort.
And crucially, in that first meeting, we see the future rulers positioning themselves. The pigs, they all settle down right in front of the platform.
Of course they do.
They are intellectually ready to absorb Major's vision and, much more importantly, to monetize it, to turn it into power.
And there's one animal who is notably absent, Moses, the tame raven.
Mm-hmm. He's sleeping on his perch.
Which is perfect. He represents the church, or maybe just abstract religion in general. He's the purveyor of the comforting lie, the promise of Sugar Candy Mountain.
He's deliberately detached from the revolutionary theory, but he provides the one thing the animals crave when the work gets too hard. A distraction. An escape.
So the stage is set, all the players are in position, and then Old Major delivers his sermon. This is the gospel of misery and freedom.
This is the foundational text. This is the Communist Manifesto of Animal Farm.
He immediately sets the tone. Our lives are miserable, laborious, and short. He argues there's no happiness, no leisure after you're 1 year old. Life is just misery and slavery.
And he shifts the blame instantly. It's not fate, it's not God, it's a singular identifiable enemy. He challenges the economic premise, too.
How?
Well, he says, look around. England's soil is fertile, the climate is excellent. It could support all of them in comfort and dignity. But the produce, which should lead to that comfort, is being stolen from them.
And that sole enemy is man. This is just laser-focused political targeting. Man is the only creature that consumes without producing.
The killer line.
It is. He cannot give milk, lay eggs, or pull the plow, yet he is lord of all the animals. That is the intellectual justification for the entire conflict.
And to really solidify that ideological commitment, Major moves from these abstract economics to these visceral, emotional examples. He gets personal.
He really does.
He points out the explicit cruelty, the theft, the cow's milk going to humans, Clover's 4 foals being sold away, never to be seen again, the hen's eggs stolen.
And then he delivers the ultimate motivation, the chilling prediction that Boxer, the strongest and most loyal animal on the farm,
The one who works the hardest.
right, he'll be sold to the knacker for boiling down the second his great muscles lose their power. Your utility defines your life, and your lack of utility defines your death under man's rule.
And that realization, that all their loyalty and all their hard work leads only to destruction, that's the galvanizing force.
Yeah.
That's what fuels the call to action. Rebellion.
Rebellion. He insists on perfect unity, perfect comradeship, demanding they work day and night for the overthrow of the human race. The message is just crystal clear. There's no possibility of coexisting with or reforming man. He must be removed.
So before they get to the positive vision, there's this quick test of their ideological commitment. It's the Wild Comrades resolution.
Right, the rats.
The rats. As traditionally, reviled creatures, they're put to a vote. And this establishes the revolutionary principle that size or species doesn't matter. Everyone is a comrade.
And you see the immediate, subtle failure of democracy right there. The rats are voted comrades by an overwhelming majority, but the only dissenters are the 3 dogs and the cat.
Who, true to form, characteristically votes on both sides.
Of course she does. Even at the absolute height of idealism, there is hidden self-interest and opportunism just lurking under the surface.
But the principles laid down by Major, they're clear and they're absolute. They function as the ethical contract of the revolution. They must adopt absolute enmity toward man and all his ways.
And the prohibitions are so specific. They're designed to prevent them from becoming the new oppressors.
Exactly. No living in a house, no sleeping in a bed, no wearing clothes, no drinking alcohol, smoking tobacco, touching money, or engaging in trade.
This is the critical safeguard. The moment they adopt the vices of man, they become man. And then the foundational political decree.
No animal must ever tyrannize over his own kind. All animals are equal.
This is the sacred, unalterable promise, the bedrock of the entire project.
Major then concludes with his dream, which he says he can't actually describe, but it triggers the memory of a song, Beasts of England.
And this song is just pure revolutionary fervor. It's a vision of the golden future time. The lyrics, they focus on the material consequences of freedom.
They do. The physical symbols of slavery, the rings, the harnesses, the bits and spurs, whips all vanishing, and the land overflowing with food, wheat, barley, oats, hay.
The power of the song is its infectious enthusiasm. Even the stupidest animals pick it up immediately. They sing it 5 times in a row in tremendous unison.
But just as that revolutionary spirit hits its absolute peak, what happens?
Mr. Jones fires his gun into the darkness.
Right, interrupting the assembly and scattering everyone. That initial perfect moment of unity is immediately checked by the reminder that power, for now, is held by those with the weapons.
And just 3 nights later, Major dies peacefully in his sleep.
And the power vacuum is immediately filled by the pigs. They're recognized as the intellectual elite, the ones capable of organizing and teaching.
This is the moment the theorists, the ones who didn't necessarily drive the physical labor of the farm, they just assume intellectual control. They take Major's teachings and elaborate them into a complete system of thought. Animalism.
And this is where we see the distinct forms of revolutionary leadership start to emerge, specifically the contrast between Snowball and Napoleon.
Yeah, this is so important. Snowball is the intellectual, he's the debater. Orwell calls him vivacious, quicker in speech, more inventive.
He represents that pure, idealistic revolutionary, the one who believes in committees and widespread education. Allegorically, he's Trotsky.
He is. But Napoleon, however, he's the strategist, the pragmatist. A large, fierce-looking Berkshire boar, he's not much of a talker, and he's focused purely on getting his own way.
He represents the ruthless accumulator of power. He's the one who understands that control isn't won by having better arguments in a debate. It's won by having better force and a better long-term strategy, the Stalin parallel.
And then there's the third critical piece of the puzzle, Squealer, the minister of propaganda.
The spin doctor.
Absolutely. Small, fat, nimble, he's the master rhetorician who could turn black into white. His job isn't to lead, it's to manipulate perception, which makes him in some ways the most dangerous character of all.
For sure. And when the pigs first try to sell animalism to the others, they face this immediate resistance. And it's rooted in, well, all the usual things: loyalty, apathy, and fear.
Right. There's loyalty to the idea of a master. There's the practical fear of, well, what will we eat? Starvation. And then there's that deep apathy about the future, the why should we care what happens after we are dead argument.
And of course, Molly's shallow concerns are the simplest form of resistance.
Sugar and ribbons.
Sugar and ribbons.
Oh,
Snowball rightly calls the ribbons the badge of slavery. But Molly's refusal to sacrifice her personal comfort for some abstract liberty, it just foreshadows her inevitable defection.
They also have to combat Moses and his comforting lie of Sugar Candy Mountain.
Which is a tough one, because the pigs struggle against this. Hope, even false hope, is so much easier to believe in than the rigorous, hard effort that animalism requires.
So the pigs have to establish their ideology against both the material world of man and this abstract world of religion.
But the key to their success in the beginning is Boxer and Clover. They provide that unwavering mass support. They absorb the simple tenets of animalism and they pass them on without any complication. Boxer's simple faith is the bedrock that allows the revolution to actually happen.
And the revolution itself, when it comes, it's not planned. It's totally spontaneous. It's a reaction to Jones's complete and utter failure as a leader.
He gets drunk, neglects the farm. The animals are underfed for days. It's Midsummer's Eve, and when they break into the store shed to eat, and Jones and his men come out with whips, it's just instinct.
The human fear is instantaneous. They lash out. But the animals, fueled by Major's ideology, they just fling themselves upon their tormentors. They overwhelm them.
And the humans flee, shocked and terrified. It proves that their oppression was always fragile. It was only upheld by the assumption of power, not by any real sustainable force.
That moment of euphoric aftermath is the revolutionary high point. They gallop the boundaries of the farm to make sure no human remains, and then they begin to destroy the symbols of their cruelty.
The bits, the nose rings, the dog chains, the whips.
The cruel knives used for castration. This destruction is a necessary act. It's a cleansing of the ideology.
And Snowball specifically throws Molly's ribbons onto the fire. He's cementing the principle that anything associated with man's aesthetic or his oppression must be annihilated.
They celebrate with double rations of corn, and they sing Beasts of England 7 times through before they go to sleep.
Their first night of freedom.
And then the next morning, they do the tour of the farmhouse, and this is like an act of historical cataloging.
They view the unbelievable luxury, the feather mattresses, the Brussels carpet, with this mixture of fear and awe.
And the key resolution is passed immediately, unanimously. The farmhouse will be preserved as a museum. No animal must ever live there.
This is the solemn vow, the promise against becoming human, and it will be the very first promise they break.
After that, the pigs consolidate their power by creating the Constitution, the 7 Commandments.
Inscribed on the barn wall. They've reduced Major's extensive principles into an unalterable law. This act of translating revolutionary spirit into rigid text is how governments formalize their existence.
And the text itself is just pure idealism. The 2 legs, 4 legs division, the prohibitions on human vices like clothes, beds, alcohol, money.
And the ultimate political statement, number 7, all animals are equal.
But that idealism is tested almost immediately. The cows, their udders are bursting, they need milking. They produce 5 pails of rich, frothing milk.
Sudden surplus of wealth.
Exactly. And while the animals are all wondering what will happen to this new wealth, Napoleon steps in. He demands they prioritize the harvest. He tells Snowball to lead the way to the hayfield, and he says, "Don't worry about the milk."
The milk will be attended to.
That's the line. And when they come back that evening from the hayfield, the milk has disappeared.
This isn't just a minor theft. This is the first crucial establishment of elite privilege. The milk, a source of immediate nutritional value for everyone, is secretly appropriated by the leadership.
And why is this the perfect first step for them?
Because the masses are too excited about freedom. They're too focused on the successful harvest to notice or protest a small secret loss. It establishes the precedent that the leadership requires special resources for their brain work
Right.
without facing any democratic scrutiny. So the revolution is structurally compromised before its first full day is even over.
And despite that little milk incident, the initial success of Animal Farm is, it's undeniable.
Oh, absolutely.
The harvest is a huge success. It's finished 2 days quicker than it ever was under Jones. It's the biggest harvest the farm had ever seen. No human wastage, no theft among the animals. They're intensely happy, believing every mouthful is earned and enjoyed by them.
And the new division of labor is established almost without discussion. The pigs supervise and direct.
A natural assumption of leadership.
Exactly. They claim intellectual superiority.
Yeah.
And the physical labor is performed by the other animals, and none more effectively than Boxer and Clover. This model, the intellectual elite directing the productive laborers, that becomes the structure of the new state.
And Boxer, our physical hero, he epitomizes the loyal laborer. He works like 3 horses combined. He even arranges with one of the cockerels to be called 30 minutes earlier in the morning.
And he adopts his personal motto, "I will work harder." That motto becomes the engine of the entire farm. It reflects this loyal, almost sacrificial dedication to the new system.
But we also see the shirkers, don't we?
Molly, who's always complaining of mysterious pains or a stone in her hoof. And the cat, who vanishes during work time, only to reappear for meals with excellent excuses.
It just highlights that even in a utopian labor project, you're still going to have opportunists and parasites.
And then there's Benjamin, the perpetual silent observer. He does his work, but slowly, never volunteering, never really engaging. His cynicism is total.
That cryptic comment he makes, "Donkeys live a long time. None of you has ever seen a dead donkey." It suggests he's seen these cycles of oppression before, and he expects no real change.
He is the repository of history, yet he refuses to share his insights. And that makes him an enabler through his non-action.
The formalization of the state continues with the Sunday ceremonies. They hoist the flag green for the fields of England with a hoof and horn for the future Republic of the Animals.
Right, and this is followed by the meeting, where resolutions are debated. But this format instantly grants all the power to the pigs, because they're the only ones who can write and propose the resolutions in the first place.
And this is where that Snowball versus Napoleon rivalry really hardens. They disagree on everything, absolutely everything, from agricultural policy to defense strategy.
And Snowball, he often wins the arguments through his vivacious, quick debate. He has popular opinion on his side.
But Napoleon, he understands the instability of the masses. He's much better at gaining support behind the scenes, particularly with the sheep. He establishes them as his easily manipulated ideological chorus.
And Snowball, he dedicates himself to education. He organizes all these committees, the Egg Production Committee, the Clean Teals League for the cows, the Wild Comrades Re-Education Committee.
And these efforts, though they're well-intentioned, they're largely failures. It just demonstrates the huge gap between idealistic intellectual planning and the reality of the animal's capacity for actual change.
The literacy results just cement that emerging hierarchy. The pigs, of course, read and write perfectly. The other animals mostly fail.
Boxer only gets as far as the letter D, A, B, C, D. He can't remember the rest.
And if the animals cannot read the founding law that's written on the side of the barn, then the law can be changed without their knowledge. Their illiteracy becomes the Achilles heel of the entire revolutionary project.
So recognizing the intellectual limitations of the masses, Snowball performs this critical ideological simplification.
He reduces the 7 commandments to a single, easily remembered maxim. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad.
This is political rhetoric streamlined for the lowest common denominator. It ensures widespread thoughtless obedience. And the sheep, they adopt this maxim fanatically. They become the perfect tool for suppressing any nuanced debate just by bleating it over and over.
But Napoleon, he's working on a fundamentally different kind of power. He takes no interest in Snowball's committees. His focus is on the young,
The puppies.
The 9 sturdy puppies whelped by Bluebell and Jessie. He takes them up to a loft for a private education for indoctrination. This is the strategic move that guarantees his future power. He's investing in the military arm, the secret police, rather than in democratic engagement or mass education.
And the final insult in this whole section, for me, is the formal reservation of the milk and the windfall apples for the pigs.
It's no longer a secret.
No, it's official policy. And Squealer is sent to rationalize this privilege. He doesn't rely on brute force. He uses this pseudoscientific argument.
Right. The milk and apples are absolutely necessary for the health of the pigs because they are brain workers. It's proven by science with a capital S.
And I think this is where the genius of Orwell really lies. The argument isn't even that convincing on its own, but Squealer immediately slams down the fear hammer.
Surely, comrades, you do not want Jones back.
It's unanswerable. By making the pigs' health synonymous with the survival of the revolution, the pigs successfully establish a self-serving elite based on a manufactured necessity. And this solidifies the first clear structural step away from equality.
By late summer, the farm's existence had become, well, a major international incident.
News is spreading via the pigeons that Snowball and Napoleon send out every day. This is their attempt to export the revolution, a direct allegorical parallel to, the attempts to spread communism globally.
And the neighboring human farmers, they react in a textbook manner. We meet the two primary Western powers, allegorically speaking.
Right. Mr. Pilkington of Foxwood, who represents the large, neglected, easygoing democracies, like the UK or the US.
And Mr. Frederick of Pinchfield, who represents the smaller, better-kept but tougher, more shrewd, perhaps more authoritarian state, Germany.
And they hate each other, but they are absolutely united in their fear of Animal Farm.
Their first tactic is just pure propaganda, mockery. They spread rumors that the animals are fighting amongst themselves, that they're starving, that they're practicing lurid acts like cannibalism and torture with red-hot horseshoes.
But when that fails to contain the idea, they use the ultimate suppression tool. They start flogging any animal they catch singing Beasts of England.
Because they recognize it as a prophecy of their future doom. The song is the ideological weapon that the humans fear the most.
The military confrontation finally arrives in October. Jones and his men, and they're backed by others from Foxwood and Pinchfield, they attempt a counter-revolution, a full-scale invasion.
But Snowball has been preparing for this, and he utilizes his military genius, which Orwell tells us is based on his reading of Julius Caesar's campaigns.
This is critical. Snowball is the brilliant tactician, and Napoleon, notably, remains silent in the background during the entire battle.
He does. Snowball engineers this two-wave defense. First, an initial skirmishing attack with the pigeons and geese to create disorder.
And that's followed by a feigned retreat to lure the humans into the pre-planned ambush in the cowshed. Classic military strategy.
The battle is ferocious. Boxer's strength is terrifying. He strikes a stable lad on the skull and stretches him lifeless in the mud with a single kick.
And Snowball proves his courage. He throws himself directly at Jones, who fires his gun, grazing Snowball's back and killing a sheep. But the humans, they just break and run in panic.
But the immediate aftermath, that's what highlights the growing moral chasm between the animals.
You mean with Boxer?
Exactly. Boxer's weeping. He regrets killing the boy. He says, I have no wish to take life, not even human life.
And Snowball's response is just ice cold, ruthless. War is war. The only good human being is a dead one.
This is the first real internal argument over the moral limits of revolutionary violence. And it sets Snowball up as the ideologue who is willing to justify ruthlessness in the name of the cause.
The victory is celebrated. It's named the Battle of the Cowshed. And military decorations, Animal Hero First Class, are conferred on Snowball and Boxer.
And Jones's gun is set up at the foot of the flagstaff to be fired twice a year. This institutionalization of the battle memorializes Snowball's heroic contribution, which makes his later erasure from history far more difficult, but, as we'll see, not impossible.
And after the battle, Molly is the first to consciously reject the revolution.
Her behavior becomes more and more troublesome. She's late for work, she's seen talking to one of Pilkington's men across the hedge.
And he's stroking her nose. And then Clover finds lump sugar and ribbons hidden under the straw in her stall. She can't tolerate the privation of freedom when comfort is being offered by the enemy.
Her disappearance. She's later seen on the other side of Willingdon, harnessed to a smart dog cart, being fed sugar by a fat, red-faced man. It's Orwell's clear statement that the superficial bourgeoisie will always choose material comfort over abstract liberty.
She's a nonviolent defector, but her choice validates the pigs' insistence that comfort equals corruption. It plays right into their hands.
And as Molly leaves, the intellectual disputes between Snowball and Napoleon just intensify. They clash on everything.
Every single issue. And Snowball's brilliance, his eloquence, it often wins the majority in the debates. It shows that popular opinion, for what it's worth, favors his idealism and his energy.
But Napoleon, he understands the instability of the masses. He focuses on non-democratic support. He's canvassing the sheep, training them to interrupt Snowball's key speeches with their bleating.
And the core conflict, the true political dividing line between them, is the windmill controversy. Snowball proposes this massive, ambitious project, a windmill to generate electricity, to power machinery, and to bring about the resultant 3-day work week. He uses human books he found in the farmhouse to draw up these meticulous technical plans.
This represents rapid industrialization, modernization. It's echoing Trotsky's vision for the Soviet Union.
And Napoleon counters this with pure pragmatism. He argues for immediate food production. He prioritizes the full manger.
He knows that promising comfort in the distant future is less powerful politically than promising food on the table today.
And his contempt for Snowball's abstract planning is made explicit when he just walks over and urinates on the chalk drawings on the floor.
A visceral dismissive act. It shows his total intellectual hostility to the project.
So the farm divides into two factions. Vote for Snowball in the 3-day week versus vote for Napoleon in the full manger.
And Benjamin, naturally, remains cynically neutral. He confirms his belief that regardless of the leader or the system, life would go on as it had always gone on. That is, badly.
They also argue over defense strategy. Snowball wants to export the revolution with more pigeons, which is internationalism. Napoleon wants to procure firearms and train the animals to use them, an isolationist military buildup.
It's the fundamental schism in post-revolutionary state strategy.
The critical moment arrives during the vote on the windmill. Snowball delivers this passionate, eloquent speech, painting a stunning vision of automation and leisure, and he wins the animals over. The democratic process is about to deliver a verdict that Napoleon simply cannot tolerate.
And this is when Napoleon reveals his strategic preparation, his long game. He lets out a high-pitched whimper.
And the 9 enormous dogs, the puppies he sequestered months ago and privately educated, they bound into the barn and chase Snowball off the farm.
He's exiled forever. This is the moment idealism is brutally crushed by force. The secret police have arrived.
The dogs instantly align themselves with Napoleon. They wag their tails to him, in the same way as the other dogs had been used to do to Mr. Jones.
That visual detail is so crucial. It's the direct replacement of one tyrant security force with another. The new totalitarian order is established right there, through physical intimidation.
And Napoleon immediately abolishes the Sunday meetings. The debates are over. He declares that all policy decisions will now be made by a special committee of pigs, presided over by himself, meeting in private.
Democracy is officially ended. It's replaced by an oligarchical decree.
The animals are horrified, but they're also confused. 4 young porkers, they dare to protest, but the menacing growls of the dogs silence them immediately.
That initial dissent is crucial because it shows that even the fear machine needs a moment to establish its control. But it's quickly snuffed out.
And the sheep, acting as the perfect mechanism of mass distraction, they start bleating, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, for 15 uninterrupted minutes, permanently suppressing any discussion.
Squealer's deployed immediately to rationalize the coup. He insists leadership is a deep and heavy responsibility. It's a sacrifice that Napoleon is making for them.
Right. He justifies the violence by painting Snowball as no better than a criminal and warning against his wrong decisions. Loyalty and obedience are now declared paramount. Discipline, comrades. Iron discipline.
And then a rhetorical hammer comes down again.
Surely, comrades, you do not want Jones back.
It works every time.
And Boxer, who is unable to process this betrayal, he submits his immense strength to the new dictator. He adopts a second maxim. Napoleon is always right. To supplement, I will work harder.
Boxer's blind loyalty is now weaponized against his own interest and the interest of all the other animals.
The consolidation of the cult of personality begins almost immediately. Old Major Skull is disinterred and set up at the foot of the flagstaff, requiring the animals to file past reverently. They're ritualizing the past to serve the present.
And then comes the breathtaking reversal, the ultimate gaslighting. Napoleon announces the windmill will be built after all.
And Squealer delivers the official lie. The plans were Napoleon's all along, and Snowball merely stole them. Napoleon's opposition was just tactics to get rid of a dangerous, subversive character.
The history of the revolution is officially rewritten just days after the coup, and it relies entirely on the animal's poor memory and Squealer's rhetorical dexterity, which is now backed by the very real threat of the dogs.
In the wake of the coup, life becomes brutal. The animals work, as Orwell says, like slaves.
Yet they accept it, because they believe they work for themselves. And this self-exploitation is the core mechanism of the new regime, the internalization of revolutionary fervor to justify extreme, backbreaking labor.
The work schedule is relentless. 60-hour ones, plus voluntary Sunday work, which is enforced by the threat of having your rations cut in half.
So much for the promise of leisure.
Exactly. The windmill construction is grueling. It requires incredible ingenuity and just sheer physical power to break the limestone boulders they need.
And Boxer is indispensable. His two maxims drive him to work 3/4 of an hour earlier every single morning.
Yeah.
He is the ultimate example of a populace working themselves to death under the illusion of freedom and ideological purity.
But despite their incredible efficiency, material shortages start to arise. Paraffin oil, nails, string, dog biscuits, iron for the horse's shoes, machinery for the windmill itself.
This forces Napoleon to commit the ultimate transgression. He announces a new policy. Animal Farm will engage in trade with the neighboring human farms.
Which directly violates Major's core principle against touching money or engaging in trade. They'll have to sell a stack of hay and part of the current year's wheat crop. And later, they'll have to sell the hen's eggs.
The animals are uneasy. They have a vague memory that this was forbidden. And again, the 4 young pigs who had protested before, they raise their voices timidly, but they are silenced by the terrifying growling of the dogs.
Squealer immediately gaslights the entire population. He goes around the farm, challenging them to produce written evidence of the prohibition. Are you certain that this is not something that you have dreamed, comrades?
And since they can't read, they accept that they must have dreamed the resolution. This demonstrates that for tyranny to succeed, it must first destroy objective reality and collective memory.
Mr. Whymper, a sly-looking solicitor, becomes the intermediary. The animals dread him and avoid him, but the sight of Napoleon on all fours, giving orders to a man who stood on 2 legs, it fills them with a certain pride.
It momentarily validates the revolution's superior structure, even if they have to deal with humans to achieve it.
And the pigs continue to formalize their privileged existence. They move into the farmhouse, they start eating in the kitchen, using the drawing room as a recreation room, and sleeping in the beds.
This is a direct, flagrant violation of the sacred resolution against adopting human ways.
Clover, her memory is fading, but it's not entirely gone. She feels sure there was a rule against beds. So she asks Muriel the goat to read the 4th commandment for her from the barn wall.
And it has been subtly revised. It now reads, "No animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets."
The pigs are masters of corruption through semantic precision.
Squealer's justification is a masterpiece of spin. A bed is just a place to sleep in. A pile of straw in a stall is a bed, technically. The prohibition was only against sheets, which are a human invention.
He stresses the need for comfort. The pigs need it due to all the brain work they have to do. And he concludes, of course, with the inevitable Jones deterrent.
The privileges just keep solidifying. The pigs now get up an hour later in the mornings than everyone else. This incremental accumulation of advantages ensures the animals grow accustomed to the new hierarchy. It normalizes it.
And then disaster strikes. In November, a raging southwest gale destroys the half-built windmill.
This crisis requires immediate deflection, a scapegoat.
And Napoleon instantly blames Snowball's malignity and treachery. He lets out a terrible roar, pronounces a death sentence on Snowball, and offers a reward for his capture.
The scapegoat is essential to distract from either the storm's power or, more likely, their own poor planning and weak construction. The walls weren't thick enough.
They find pig footprints leading away from the farm, and Napoleon pronounces them to be Snowballs. He links the internal enemy to the external enemy of Frederick's farm, Foxwood.
And Napoleon turns this total failure into a rallying cry. They'll begin rebuilding immediately, this time with walls twice as thick. Long live the windmill, long live Animal Farm.
The winter that follows is bitter and hard. Food runs critically short, especially after the potato crop fails because it was frosted in the clamps. Starvation looms.
This lack of material progress directly contradicts all of Squealer's earlier figures about increased production.
Yeah.
Reality is starting to bite.
So Napoleon isolates himself further. He's rarely seen in public, always guarded by his dogs, issuing his orders through Squealer. He has to maintain the illusion of prosperity for the outside world.
So he orders the almost empty bins in the store shed to be filled with sand and then covered with the remaining grain and meal. This is to ensure Mr. Whymper, on his weekly visits, reports back that there's no food shortage on Animal Farm. Deception of the international community is now formalized state policy.
The material deprivation inside the farm leads to the first mass internal conflict, the Egg Rebellion.
The hens are told they must surrender 400 eggs a week to be sold for grain, an act they consider to be murder.
So 3 young black Minorca pullets lead a determined rebellion. They fly up to the rafters and lay their eggs there so that they smash to pieces on the floor.
And Napoleon responds with Stalinist severity. He orders that the hens' rations are to be stopped completely and that any animal giving so much as a grain of corn to a hen will be punished by death.
The dogs enforce the order. The rebellion lasts 5 days, but then they're starved into submission. 9 hens die, but it's reported to the outside world that they died of coccidiosis.
This establishes the regime's willingness to use systematic internal terror to enforce its economic policy.
The scapegoating just intensifies after this. Snowball is now blamed for every single misfortune: stolen corn, broken eggs, gnawed bark on the fruit trees. He becomes this phantom enemy, necessary to channel all the animals' frustration away from Napoleon.
Even a mislaid key to the store shed is blamed on him. It just shows how pervasive the fear and suspicion have become.
And then Squealer escalates the lies to a whole new level. He announces that Snowball has sold himself to Frederick of Pinchfield Farm and was Jones's secret agent from the very start.
This is the complete, total revision of history. He claims to have secret documents that prove Snowball was trying to ensure their defeat at the Battle of the Cowshed.
Boxer, despite his loyalty, he protests. He can't believe it. He says, "I do not believe that Snowball was a traitor at the beginning. We have seen him fight bravely at the Battle of the Cowshed."
This is that crucial moment where the loyal worker attempts to use objective memory against state propaganda.
But Squealer quickly counters with graphic, invented details. He claims Napoleon himself sprang forward and bit Jones's leg. He says Snowball's wound was part of the plot.
When Boxer still insists Snowball was a good comrade, Squealer states categorically that Comrade Napoleon says Snowball was a traitor from long before the rebellion was ever thought of.
And Boxer, faced with this choice between his own memory and the absolute word of his leader, he just resigns. He says, if Comrade Napoleon says it, it must be right.
This absolute surrender of individual intellect to state authority is perhaps the most tragic moment of the entire novel.
And Squealer issues this chilling warning. Snowball's secret agents are lurking among us at this moment. The psychological preparation sets the stage for the Great Purge.
4 days later, the terror erupts. Napoleon, now wearing both his medals, Animal Hero First Class and Animal Hero Second Class, emerges with his fierce dogs and demands confessions.
The dogs seize the 4 protesting pigs, and when 3 of the dogs fling themselves on Boxer, he just puts out his great hoof, pins one to the ground, and looks to Napoleon for direction. He has the physical power to overthrow the entire regime right there, but his loyalty prevents him from even considering it.
The 4 pigs confess to collaborating with Snowball and are executed on the spot, and the terror just snowballs from there. The 3 hens who led the Egg Rebellion, a goose, 3 sheep, they all confess to various fabricated crimes and are slaughtered. A pile of corpses forms.
This is the first time animals have killed other animals since the revolution began. It's a realization of the terror they thought they'd escaped.
The remaining animals are devastated. Clover huddles on the knoll overlooking the farm, and she realizes that this scene of terror and slaughter was the exact opposite of the revolution's aim.
Yet she lacks the words to protest, and she reaffirms her loyalty to Napoleon simply to prevent the return of Jones. Fear has successfully replaced idealism as the primary motivating factor for everyone.
And in the aftermath of this bloodbath, Squealer announces that Beasts of England has been abolished.
He claims the revolution is completed. The song is obsolete, it was a song of rebellion, and the rebellion is over. The better society they dreamed of is now established.
It's replaced by a duller, new song written by Minimus the poet. The anthem of hope and freedom is replaced by the jingle of absolute, meaningless obedience.
After the purge, the pigs move swiftly to legalize the executions. A few days later, some of the animals think they remember that the 6th commandment forbade killing. So Clover asks Muriel to read it to her again, and it now reads, "No animal shall kill any other animal without cause."
That little semantic loophole, it instantly justifies the killings as state-sanctioned justice. The cause was treason.
The animals work ceaselessly on the second attempt at the windmill. They feel like they're working longer hours and eating no better than they did in Jones's day.
But Squealer, reading from a long strip of paper, bombards them with statistics. Figures proving that production of every class of foodstuff had increased by 200, 300, or even 500%.
And since the animals cannot remember the past clearly, they rely on the certainty of the numbers. Statistical manipulation has completely replaced their observable reality.
The cult of Napoleon is now fully developed. He's isolated, he's guarded by his dogs, and a black cockerel who acts as a trumpeter before he speaks. He eats alone from the Crown Derby dinner service.
He accumulates these ludicrous titles: father of all animals, terror of mankind, protector of the sheepfold, duck's friend, and, of course, just Comrade Napoleon.
Squealer's speeches attribute every success, every piece of good fortune, to Napoleon's wisdom. Even the water-tasting excellent is thanks to his leadership. And Minimus writes the fawning poem, Comrade Napoleon, which is inscribed on the barn wall opposite the commandments.
The paranoia deepens, too. A pig named Pink Eye is assigned as Napoleon's food taster, which indicates the leader's constant fear of assassination, even from his own inner circle.
And the pile of timber left over from Jones's day becomes the focus of high diplomacy. Napoleon skillfully plays Mr. Pilkington against Mr. Frederick.
He rapidly shifts the propaganda. The pigeons are told to change their slogan from "Death to Frederick" to "Death to Pilkington." The rumors about Frederick's cruelty are replaced by rumors about Pilkington.
And Snowball is now accused of the most absurd things, mixing weed seeds into the corn. And his cowshed medal is retroactively declared to be a legend. It never existed. History is just a fluid tool of foreign policy now.
In a final move, Napoleon announces he's selling the timber to Frederick. He breaks off all relations with Pilkington. He insists on payment in cash, real 5-pound notes, and he celebrates his own cunning for having forced Frederick to raise the price by 12 pounds.
The pigs are just euphoric over their leader's tactical brilliance.
The euphoria lasts for exactly 3 days. Mr. Whymper races back from town, his face pale. The banknotes are forgeries. Frederick got the timber for nothing.
Napoleon erupts in a terrible rage. He pronounced the death sentence on Frederick to be boiled alive. This financial betrayal perfectly mirrors the historical difficulties the Soviet regime faced in trade and diplomatic relations with the capitalist powers.
And Frederick immediately attacks. The next morning, he comes with 15 armed men. The animals cannot withstand the gunfire, and they're driven back into the farm buildings.
They desperately send pigeons to Pilkington for aid, but his message comes back. A single line penciled on a scrap of paper.
Serves you right. The betrayal by one neighbor ensures there will be no help from the other.
And then the ultimate horror. Frederick's men use blasting powder to blow up the fully completed windmill.
This isn't just a military defeat. This is the physical annihilation of years of sacrifice and backbreaking labor.
Rage replaces fear. The animals counterattack in a savage, bitter battle, and they sustain heavy casualties. A cow, 3 sheep, 2 geese are killed. Nearly everyone is wounded.
But Boxer, despite his age and injuries, he's brutal. He breaks heads with his hoofs. They manage to drive Frederick and his men off the farm.
The victory is completely Pyrrhic. The windmill is gone. Boxer, who is bleeding from a dozen places, states with this profound, simple insight. Then we have won back what we had before.
And Squealer immediately dismisses this logic. He says, that is our victory. The battle is renamed the Battle of the Windmill, and the gun is fired 7 times. Propaganda dictates that a devastating loss must be celebrated as a glorious victory.
The moral collapse follows immediately after the victory. The pigs discover a case of whiskey in the farmhouse cellar, violating the original prohibitions. Loud, drunken singing emanates from the house that night.
The next morning, Squealer announces with a grave face that Comrade Napoleon is dying.
A rumor goes around that Snowball had contrived to poison his food.
And Napoleon issues a dying decree. The drinking of alcohol is to be punished by death. This short-lived moral panic just shows the volatility of the regime's legal framework when faced with a bad hangover.
By evening, Napoleon is much better. And within days, he instructs Mr. Whymper to purchase booklets on brewing and distilling. The small paddock that was originally set aside for retired animals is plowed up and sown with barley.
The promised retirement for the animals is sacrificed for the pig's new vice.
And the final touch. A few nights later, there's a loud crash in the yard. Squealer is found stunned on the ground beside a broken ladder, a lantern, a paintbrush, and an overturned pot of white paint, right near the barn wall with the commandments.
And Benjamin, the cynical intellectual, he understands exactly what this means, but he refuses to comment.
A few days later, Muriel the goat, reads the fifth commandment again. It now says, "No animal shall drink alcohol to excess."
The law is revised to legalize the pig's consumption, but only within prescribed limits, further establishing their status as the moral arbiters of the farm, the ones who decide what excess means.
Despite his split hoof and his advancing age, he's nearly 12 years old. Boxer refuses to rest. His ambition is completely sacrificial. He wants to see the windmill well underway before he reaches the age of retirement, which he still believes is guaranteed.
But the promise of a pension life is entirely hollow. The small field that was meant for retirement is now sown with barley, and the concept of retirement is just becoming more and more distant.
Rations are readjusted again, which is a euphemism for being reduced for all animals except for the pigs and the dogs.
And Squealer uses his long lists of figures to prove that life is dramatically better than it was under Jones. And the key insight here is the animals' psychological reliance on the idea of freedom. They cling to Squealer's figures because challenging them would mean admitting the whole revolution was a sham.
And the pig's luxury becomes more and more formalized. 31 young pigs are born, all Napoleon's offspring. A hereditary elite is created.
They receive specific privileges. They wear green ribbons on their tails on Sundays, and other animals are instructed to stand aside on the path when they pass. The caste system is cemented.
The barley reserve goes exclusively to the pigs, who now get a pint of beer daily. Napoleon gets half a gallon served to him in the Crown Derby soup tureen.
To distract from the hardship and the hunger, Napoleon institutes spontaneous demonstrations once a week.
These are carefully organized processions with songs and speeches, all designed to remind the animals that they are truly their own masters and to celebrate the struggles and triumphs of Animal Farm.
And the sheep act as the indispensable chorus, silencing any possible dissent with their bleating of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad.
In April, Animal Farm is proclaimed a republic, and Napoleon is elected president unanimously. He was the only candidate.
And the final Snowball smear occurs during the election propaganda. Squealer announces that Snowball had not just been a coward, but had actually been the leader of the human forces at the Battle of the Cowshed, shouting, "Long live humanity."
The constant historical revision ensures the current leader is beyond reproach.
Crucially, Moses the Raven returns after an absence of several years. He's still promoting Sugar Candy Mountain.
And the pigs, they now realize the utility of false hope to maintain morale among the overworked population, so they tolerate him. They denounce his stories, but they allow him to stay on the farm, not working, and they give him a gill of beer every day. Religion, once opposed, is now a tool of the state.
And then Boxer, exhausted and frail, finally collapses while dragging a boulder to the windmill. His lung has failed. Clover and Benjamin rush to his side.
Squealer appears, full of false sympathy. He promises to arrange for Boxer to be sent to the hospital in Willingdon. The animals are uneasy, they dislike the idea of human contact, but Squealer assures them the veterinary surgeon there can provide superior care.
The ultimate betrayal arrives in a dramatic reversal of Benjamin's character. The cynical donkey, who has refused to engage for his entire life, suddenly comes galloping, the first time anyone has ever seen him excited, to warn the others.
A large closed van has arrived to take Boxer away, and Benjamin, breaking his lifetime rule of detachment, reads the lettering on the side of the van to the horrified crowd.
Alfred Simmons, horse slaughterer and glue boiler, Willingdon. Dealer in hides and bone meal, kennels supplied.
The truth is exposed in that horrifying moment. The most loyal, hardest-working servant of the revolution is being sold to the knacker for profit.
Boxer attempts a frantic, futile effort to kick his way out, but his strength is gone. He disappears down the road. This scene is the ultimate indictment of this cynical regime. The loyal worker is expendable the moment their utility ends.
And Squealer delivers the final, elaborate lie a few days later. He claims to have been with Boxer at his deathbed in the hospital. He says Boxer died peacefully, attended by the best doctors.
And he claims Boxer's last words were his maxims. "Forward, comrades! Long live Comrade Napoleon! Napoleon is always right."
And the knacker's van. Squealer explains with a little titter that the van had been bought by the veterinary surgeon, but he hadn't yet had time to paint over the old name. A quick technical denial that the masses, who are so relieved, immediately accept.
Napoleon gives a short oration, reminding the animals of Boxer's tireless labor and his 2 favorite maxims. The very next night, a memorial banquet is held for Boxer.
It's followed by uproarious singing and the sound of breaking glass from the farmhouse, confirming that the pigs used the money they got from selling Boxer to buy another case of whiskey. The ultimate value of the proletariat's sacrifice is reduced to the elite's consumption.
Years pass. And the memory of the rebellion fades, accomplished by time and mortality. Muriel, Bluebell, Jessie, Pincher, and Jones are all dead. Only Clover, Benjamin, Moses, and a few of the pigs remain from the original revolutionaries.
And the promise of a pensioned life has been dropped entirely. Glover is 2 years past retirement age, but no animal has ever actually retired. The idea of future comfort has been replaced by the reality of continuous hard labor until you die.
The farm is richer now. It's better organized. It's been enlarged by 2 fields bought from Mr. Pilkington. The windmill is finished, but it's used for milling corn for profit, not for generating electricity or enabling the 3-day work week.
Napoleon has denounced those former luxuries as being contrary to the spirit of animalism. He asserts that the truest happiness lay in working hard and living frugally.
Yet this prosperity, this truest happiness, it applies only to the pig and dog class who have grown richer and more numerous.
Their work consists of endless, mysterious paperwork. Files, reports, minutes, and memoranda, which they burn in the furnace after writing. They produce no food, but they consume very well. Their work is purely bureaucratic control, a parody of management.
And the common animals, they live as they always have. Hungry, cold, and laborious. They rely entirely on Squealer's falsified figures to convince themselves that life is better than it was under Jones.
And Benjamin's cynicism is finally totally validated. As he says, things never had been, nor ever could be, much better or much worse. Hunger, hardship, and disappointment were, he said, the unalterable law of life.
But despite the overwhelming evidence, the animals retain this final, desperate sense of pride. They cling to the belief that they are free, that they are not slaves to man, and that all animals were equal. This ideological remnant is the final piece of the revolution that must be destroyed.
And the final collapse begins suddenly. Squealer takes the sheep away to a secluded piece of ground for a whole week. He says he's teaching them a new song. He's preparing the final tool of ideological control.
And then comes the shocking sight, the physical manifestation of the ultimate betrayal. One evening, Squealer appears in the yard, walking a little awkwardly on his hind legs.
Then a long file of pigs emerges from the farmhouse, all walking upright. This violates the very first, most fundamental principle of animalism.
Finally, Napoleon himself appears, majestically upright, casting haughty glances from side to side, and most tellingly, carrying a whip in his trotter.
The symbolism is absolute. The new ruler has physically adopted the posture and the weapon of the old oppressor.
The animals are so stunned they might have protested. But just at that moment, the sheep return, and they burst into a tremendous continuous bleating of their new maxim.
4 legs good, 2 legs better.
This new slogan officially obliterates the founding ideology and suppresses any potential protest before it can even begin.
Clover, weeping and frail, asks Benjamin to read the wall for her one last time. And Benjamin, performing his last crucial act of service, he reads the single remaining commandment.
All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
And this is it. The legal foundation of the absolute oligarchy. It destroys the entire moral premise of the revolution with a single contradictory clause.
Following this, the adoption of human ways is rapid and complete. The pigs carry whips, they buy a wireless set, they start to subscribe to human newspapers, they begin wearing Mr. and Mrs. Jones's old clothes. Napoleon appears in a black coat, rat-catcher breeches, and leather leggings. The visual equivalence with the former master is complete.
The final scene confirms the complete regression. A deputation of neighboring human farmers visits Animal Farm for a dinner party. They inspect the farm, not to challenge the revolution, but to admire the system.
Mr. Pilkington gives a toast, and he praises the pigs specifically for their harsh efficiency, the low rations and the long working hours of the common animals. This is the ultimate proof that the pigs have perfected the mechanisms of exploitation that man could only dream of.
And Pilkington drives the explicit parallel home with this chilling witticism. If you have your lower animals to contend with, he says, we have our lower classes. The human oppressors recognize the pigs as their peers, as masters who manage their labor force with superior cruelty and discipline.
Napoleon responds. He assures the humans there is no subversive intent in Animal Farm, and that he only wishes to live in peace and have normal business relations.
And he announces several changes to promote confidence in the new regime. The abolition of the title comrade, the burial of Old Major's skull, and the removal of the hoof and horn from the flag. It is now just a plain green banner. All remnants of idealism are systematically destroyed.
And then the ultimate rename. Napoleon abolishes the name Animal Farm. The farm is officially renamed the Manor Farm, reverting to its original name. The cycle is complete. The revolution has eaten itself.
The final moment of instability. Napoleon and Pilkington are playing cards, and they quarrel loudly when they both play an ace of spades simultaneously. The animals, who have crept up to the window, they peer in. 12 voices were shouting in anger, and they were all alike.
And that terrifying final sentence. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again, but already it was impossible to say which was which.
The oppressors are indistinguishable. It confirms that the new state is merely the old tyranny wearing a different face.
This journey from Old Major's vision of comfort and dignity to that final horrifying realization that the new regime is identical to the old, it's just Orwell's devastating analysis of power.
We've seen the mechanisms at work. The weaponization of language by Squealer, reducing complex morality to silencing slogans like 4 legs good, 2 legs better, and the ability of tyranny to just destroy objective reality.
We saw the constant revision of history, making Snowball a perpetual traitor just to justify present cruelty. And the crucial role of illiteracy and poor memory, which left the common animals with no fixed reference point to challenge the changing laws.
And crucially, the crushing of internal dissent. Relying on the private force of the dogs and the blind, fatal loyalty of Boxer, whose ultimate reward was the knacker's cart, a transaction symbolizing that the loyal servant is only ever valued for their utility.
So we'll leave you with this provocative thought, and it stems from Pilkington's joke about the lower classes and Napoleon's final act of renaming the farm.
If the true struggle was man versus animal, and the outcome is simply the fusion of man and pig, what is the fate of any revolution that focuses solely on replacing the face at the top, without fundamentally changing the power structure that allows some creatures to be more equal than others?
What are the systems on your own farm that rely on your fear of the past, or maybe your inability to read the fine print of the commandments? Something for you to mull over or explore on your own.